If you followed my previous video, you know that I have installed the OpenClaw on my 8-year-old Raspberry Pi, which is ultra secure. So basically I have no public ports open, no password login, no root access, tailscale only remote authentication, isolated system user, system D supervision. Now it looked perfect and I thought that I'll just be able to install the skills and I'll be able to use it. But then everything broke. Welcome everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you what actually happened when I tried to enable the skills on a hardened Raspberry Pi. All the failures, all the compatibility issues, I'll try to cover it in as much detail as possible. So this is the OpenClaw dashboard, which is open here, and you can see a lot of skills. So there are some built-in skills and there is something known as Claw Hub. So you can go here and you can see that there are a lot of skills here in the Claw Hub. So basically skills are which give your OpenClaw agent real world capabilities. So the OpenClaw agent uses these skills to interact with the real world. For example, we have some skills like Apple Notes, Apple Reminders, Beer Notes. So basically using those skills, it can interact with whatever service it wants to. For example, you can see in Apple Notes, it is written manage Apple Notes via Memo CLI on macOS. So basically, if you want to create Apple Notes through the Memo CLI by telling it to your OpenClaw agent, it will be able to do that. Now, let me first cover the basic way how you would like to install the skills if you are on any other system. For example, if you are on a Mac Mini or a VPS, in that case, you have to go to the terminal and then you can say something like OpenClaw configure like this, and it will open up a TUI for you. And once you get the TUI, you can just press enter. And then you have to select the section to configure. And here you have to select skills, press enter. And yes, I want to configure the skills now. Now you can choose the skills which you want to install, and you can just press space to select these skills, for example, and then press enter. But what will happen is that it will ask for Brew. So basically Brew is the default installer for the binaries for these skills. Now what are binaries? So if I go to the dashboard, you can see that the Apple Notes is not there, it is blocked. Now this skill is installed by default in OpenClaw, but it is not enabled or activated because it is missing the binaries like memo and OS, that is Darwin. So similarly, you can see in each skill, there are some missing binaries. So those binaries are required to be installed. Now, if you are in a Mac Mini, the process is very simple. You just select these skills here, press enter. Everything else will be handled by OpenClaw through Homebrew. But in case of Linux, or probably in the case of ARM processor, we have to handle this manually. Now Brew is compatible with Raspberry Pi, but it will bypass the security of the Debian Linux and you will face unnecessary complications. So I'll just exit this and let's come to here. Now I have written a complete detailed guide about how to install skills on OpenClaw instance on Raspberry Pi. This guide is available on my website and I'll leave a link in the description. Now let's go through this guide and let me take you through the process, what happened, what broke, and how I fixed it. Now, before we understand anything, we have to understand our system installation, how we have installed the OpenClaw. I have an admin user. I have named it RPi, and inside it there is an isolated system user, that is OpenClaw, and the OpenClaw instance is running inside that. Apart from that, there's a OpenClaw systemd service process which handles basically how the OpenClaw is running. So basically, it is responsible for handling the automatic restart of OpenClaw if in case my Raspberry Pi is shut down or something like that. Okay, so we have to understand that there are these three distinct path environments. Okay, and when we install a particular binary, it works in the shell, but the OpenClaw will not be able to find it if it is in the wrong path environment. So that is something very important to understand. Now you can use this command to check which package is installed in which particular path environment. So let's go through one by one. At the outset, I wanted to enable basically four skills. First is the GitHub skills so that my OpenClaw can manage GitHub, create code, create commits, etc. Second is the cog skill so that it can manage my Google Workspace, so that it can create events in the calendar, send emails and stuff like that. Then the next skill I wanted was the Nano Banana Pro so that it can create images, and the OpenAI Whisper so that I can give voice commands to my OpenClaw agent and it should be able to transcribe locally. Now, first is now let's first come to the GH scale or the GitHub CLI. Now this was very straightforward. I did not face any issue in it. The simple command, I just updated the repositories and then ran the command sudo apt install ghy and everything worked perfectly fine. The GH scale was enabled. Now coming on to the cog CLI. Now this is where things started to get complex. So like the GH scale was directly available from the apt repository, but there was no direct apt install for the cog CLI. So we had to make it from the source. ChatGPT told me to run this command to install the GOG CLI, but when I tried to do this, I saw something like this. So basically, this is GitHub returning a not found page. So there was no pre-built ARM64 binary in the release. Okay. Now to fix that, I found a README. So if I say GOG CLI, so I found the GitHub repository of cog CLI and they have given a detailed readme of how to install it in various scenarios and how to make it from source. So I gave this again to ChatGPT and then it told me that I have to install Go, and then it gave me certain commands. Basically, we have to clone the complete repository and then perform the make command. So this worked perfectly fine and I was able to install the GOG CLI. After that, once the GOG was installed, we had to copy it into the /user/local/bin directory so that it has the global access. And then we ran this command to remove any permission issues. Okay. So after doing all this, I was able to make the GOG skill eligible for my OpenClaw. Now the next step was to install UV. Now this was required for the Nano Banana Pro. So you will get a message also if you will try to install from the OpenClaw TUI that UV is required to be installed. So again, few simple commands which I had to run and UV was installed and I was able to see that okay, the OpenClaw has access to my UV. Now everything was installed in /user/local bin, but if we check our OpenClaw service file, so let me just show you. I'll just copy this and let's go here and let's exit and I'll paste the command here. Now if you have followed my previous tutorial, in this service file, we had not included slash user slash local slash bin, and also we have not included our venv. So we have to update it with this. So here you can see we have to update the environment path, and we also have to export the environment path through this command. So basically this thing has to be done. So basically this is mandatory to be entered into the OpenClaw service file. Now once you have everything in the service file, you have to reload the daemon and you have to restart the OpenClaw service, and your OpenClaw should be able to see everything even if the system restarts. Now for Python based skills, for example, the offline whisper skill, there is something called PyTorch which is required to be installed. Now PyTorch is not compatible with the ARM64 structure because it is very process heavy and you require a GPU for it, and there's no GPU on a Raspberry Pi. So basically there are workarounds, but it is not recommended to install PyTorch on the Raspberry Pi. So for that, what we can do, we have to create a virtual environment. So we can just create this, make sure that Python and pip are installed on your Raspberry Pi. I had that already installed on my Raspberry Pi. So after that, activate the virtual environment, and inside that you have to do pip install OpenAI Whisper. Okay, now once you do that, you have to make sure that the binary exists and the installation has been completed successfully. Now the Whisper skill also requires ffmpeg system wide, so you can install that from the root user, sudo apt install ffmpeg. One thing to note here is that you install everything in the correct environment. For example, the ffmpeg has to be in the global install. The OpenAI Whisper has to be installed in a virtual environment inside the OpenClaw user, because if you will install that as a RPi user, then it will be in this directory and which will be completely invisible to the service. Okay. Now, even after the OpenAI Whisper was installed, as I told you, due to the PyTorch issue, I was not able to run it properly. And then I decided to ask it from the OpenClaw itself. So here are the exact prompts which I gave to my OpenClaw instance. So for that, we already have the Telegram set up. You can either use the Telegram, or the better way is through the chat inside the OpenClaw gateway dashboard, because sometimes when long processes are running, that times the Telegram fails. So for example, as you can see, the OpenClaw will try multiple things and try to run multiple processes, and you will face issues on Telegram. So my personal advice, during setup, you should do everything inside the default chat box of the OpenClaw gateway dashboard. I told it, can you check if I have the requirements for OpenAI Whisper without an API key? Then it ran a series of checks internally, and it found out that okay, it has venv, and it tested Torch, and it found out that the Torch is not compatible with the CPU I am using. So as you can see, that was a CPU architecture incompatibility. So to fix that, we had to build the whisper.cpp from scratch or from source. So for that, again, I told my OpenClaw agent that probably my CPU is not powerful enough to run PyTorch. How can I enable the OpenAI Whisper skill using the Whisper CPP? And then it told me that you can make a compatibility wrapper and create a bash script named Whisper that would call the Whisper CLI under the hood. But I didn't like this idea because it was a little hacky, and that's why I gave it another prompt. Is there a better way to enable the OpenAI Whisper skill without the API? And then it gave me this response. So basically it told me that the best option is to clone the OpenAI Whisper skill into a new local skill that checks for the Whisper CLI and uses proper whisper.cpp args. I said fine, choose the best option and set it up. And then the OpenClaw agent got to work. It hit various obstacles, but it successfully navigated through all of it, which was impressive. Actually, it worked the complete night, and when I woke up in the morning, I found out that everything was working. I had the binaries set up correctly, and when I gave a audio message through my Telegram, it was transcribed successfully. Now, there was one more issue that when you send a audio file through Telegram, it reaches the OpenClaw as .ogg file. However, the whisper.cpp has the capability to transcribe wave files only. Now, since we had ffmpeg installed, the OpenClaw automatically did the transformation of .ogg file to .wave file, and then it provided me the transcription, so that every time any kind of file format is converted to wave format before transcription. So I told it yes to that, and it created a wrapper script at this location, due to through which I was able to transcribe any voice commands which I gave through Telegram to the OpenClaw agent. Now, once I had everything set up, I also told the agent to remember its own environment, and I gave it this prompt. So since my OpenClaw is not installed on Mac but on a Raspberry Pi in an isolated environment, I do not want to use Brew as the default manager for handling skill dependencies. Detect my system, check your permissions, and choose a default manager for handling the skills dependency. And it updated this in the tools.md file, which we can see here in agents. So if I check the tools.md file, you should see a set of instructions here. So you can see that it tells me how to access the dashboard. I've told it to remember how to access OpenClaw in case I forget the commands. So you can see that it knows how to access the OpenClaw from laptop, how to access the dashboard. Apart from that, it has the default manager policy in which it has where my Python dependencies are, what CLI tools binaries are available, when to use apt, when to use brew. So basically you can see that do not use on this host. Now once I had this setup, so my OpenClaw knew what host it is on and what kind of environment it has access to. I wanted to check whether it can just follow my command and install a skill. So I just told it to install the summarize skill. It automatically installed it using npm, which was within its permitted tools. You can verify the final skill status using OpenClaw Doctor. So when you will run that, you will see eligible 9 in my case, because when I installed those dependencies, I had made few other skills eligible as well. So you can see that my GH is enabled. Apart from that, GitHub is eligible, GOG is eligible, there's health check which is eligible. Apart from that, I have OpenAI Whisper, which is eligible and working perfectly fine. Then we have the skill creator, video frames, because we have installed FFmpeg, whether skill is eligible. So this is how I made these skills eligible. Now this is not the complete configuration. Right now the skills are eligible, but they are not yet in use because I still have to, for example, set the credentials for to use the GOG skill. How the OpenClaw will know which Google account to use, where to use the Gmail, how to set the calendar. So for that, we have to give our OpenClaw agent the credentials. Similarly, we have to set the Gemini API key for the Nano Banana Pro to work. So I leave that for the next video, and hopefully that will be a smoother process than this, because now I have a clean stack. My OpenClaw knows in which environment it is operating and what permissions it has. So in the next video, we will be going to push this further and we will actually add credentials to these skills so that our OpenClaw can perform real world actions like sending emails, setting events in the calendar and stuff like that. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. If you have reached this far, please drop a comment like how you are running your OpenClaw instance or how you're planning to run your OpenClaw instance. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you so much.